Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we have a very special episode. This past December, my daughter Leilan and I took an unforgettable daddy-daughter trip to Patagonia, where we tackled the famous W Trek in Torres del Paine National Park in Chile. It was a challenging, breathtaking, and deeply meaningful experience for both of us. While it was just the two of us who traveled there, one of the greatest gifts of a journey like this is the people that you meet along the way. The W Trek is a refugio to refugio trek with hikers from around the world following the same route and staying in the same places each night. So strangers quickly become friends. Today, we're joined by two of those friends, Tisca Chandaria from London and Natalia Poskrebysheva from Amsterdam. Leilan and I met each of them separately, along with their hiking companions, on the trail, and we quickly connected. We ended up sharing parts of the journey together, including the scenery, the unpredictable Patagonian weather, the challenge, countless stories, and plenty of laughs. Now, here we are together again, and I can't wait to share our adventure, the magic of Patagonia, and the meaningful friendships that grew along the way with these incredible people. Natalia, Tisca, Leilan, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so giddy, and I have been for the last 48 hours at least, because it's so good to see your faces. We were strangers just over a month ago, and now here we are hanging out from multiple countries. This is just so cool. So thank you guys for joining me today. And I think to kind of bring listeners into the loop here, I do want to just kind of start with an overview of what the W Trek is. And Tisca, I think I'm going to pick on you to share a little bit about what this journey's about.
Yes. So the W Trek is a trek in Patagonia, and there's two kind of famous ones, the W and the O Trek. But the W itself is a 4 to 5 day trek where you go from campsite to campsite, and you cover, a specific amount of distance before you get to each site. But every campsite that you go to has very different views, and it feels like a journey, essentially.
Yeah, very good. And I think I need to say the W Trek is the name of it. And in my day job, my business, it's a real estate business called the W Realty Group. And so, of course, I had to go do the W Trek, and we did have a sponsor. Leilan and I had shirts. It was pretty awesome. Yeah. So, Natalia, can I pick on you to kind of share a little bit more about Patagonia and the region that the W Trek is in?
Yeah, Patagonia is south of South America. It has two countries in it that people go usually when they go to Patagonia. It's Argentina and Chile. And these are two sides that are quite different, but also quite similar to each other. So they speak the same language, the scenery is sort of similar, but I feel like Chile was a little bit more organized than the Argentinian side. And also on the Argentinian side, where myself and my partner went after the Chile and W Trek, you have more of the day hikes. So you usually stay in a place called El Chalten.
Yeah.
And then you just do a day trip to these famous mountains that look like a Patagonia jacket. But they're all the day hikes, while in Chile you have famous WO track where it's more of a journey part.
Yeah. And Natalia, you were there for quite a long period of time, not just doing the W Trek. What else did you do while you were there?
Yeah, I went we flew to Santiago, so my friends there, then down to Punta Arenas. In Punta Arenas, you can go to our island called Isla Magdalena, And there they have the largest penguin colony. It's really nice. There are lots of penguins walking around. Then we went over to Puerto Natales, did the W track with you guys. And then we traveled over to Calafate in Argentina, where you can see a large glacier and do some glacier walking. Then El Chalten with a lot of the Argentinian Patagonian hikes. And then we flew into Buenos Aires on the way back.
Amazing.
Some sun and 40 degrees in comparison to Patagonian winds.
Yes, amazing. And Tisca, remind us what your trip entailed outside of the W Trek.
Yeah, we started in Santiago, spent, I think, 2 or 3 nights there. But one of the days we went to the wine country in Casablanca, and we just spent the day at the vineyard hanging out. I don't drink much wine, but it was so beautiful and like such a gorgeous thing to do. And then we flew down to Puerto Natales, and then it was only 8 days, so we really were there just for the hike and a little bit of sightseeing.
Amazing. And Leilan, so tell us a little bit about the challenge and like the distances and kind of what the logistics of the W Trek entail.
Yeah, so the trek is around, I believe it was 50 miles in total. So it's in a pretty secluded area. So you have to fly into either Puerto Natales, which is what I think y'all did. And then we flew into Punta Arenas and then took a bus down to Puerto Natales, which was about 2 hours, and then another bus into the park. And then from there, you have to take a catamaran to get to the first refugio, which is since it's a W, you can start on either side. So you can either start at the park entrance or take the catamaran, which is what we did, onto the left side of the park. And then from there, you're pretty much just on your feet. It's all on you whether you make it to the end or not. There's not much they can do for you if you don't make it.
And what was the up and down? Do you remember like the ascent? Was there high altitude involved?
I don't remember the specifics, but I would say there was a lot of elevation change. It wasn't much of you didn't spend a prolonged period of time in high elevation, but on the average day, I think there was usually around 1,000 to 2,000 feet of elevation change.
Yeah, it was intense. And it was like for us, and I know others on this call had a different experience, but for us, the first day or two were kind of easy, and we were like, "Oh wow, this is like pretty easy." And then all of a sudden, it got hard really fast. And we'll get into that. I know that Tisca went the opposite direction, had a little bit different experience. Excited to hear that story. But all right, so let's just do a real quick round here. If you can, I would love to hear why each of you chose this particular adventure, and maybe just share a little bit about you and kind of what your adventure experience was sort of leading up to this trip. And Leilan, let's start with you.
Okay. So I am currently a college student. I'm at UNC Chapel Hill. And I've been doing backpacking, camping, all the stuff with my dad for as long as I can remember. So I've always been a big outdoor person. And when I was graduating high school and kind of deciding where I wanted to go to college, what the rest of the next couple of years would look like, I thoroughly thought about taking a gap year and going to Patagonia for a semester before I started college. So that obviously didn't happen. I'm sitting in my dorm right now, but I talked to my dad about it and was like, okay, well, if I'm not going to take a gap year, maybe we can just go anyway. We'll go for a break and we'll just do a little trek, get a taste of Patagonia. And then if I decide to go back and spend a month there like Natalia did, then awesome. But yeah, just to get a taste and kind of a consolation for not taking a gap year.
Amazing. And we definitely packed it in. Leilan finished her exams. We hopped on a plane, traveled the 2 days to get there, did the 5-day trek, and then 2 days home in time for Christmas. So definitely packed it in. Natalia, how about you?
Yeah. I work in analytics, so it's very structured type of work. And I think outside of work, I want something much more like reflective and observant and like learning about the world. And like I have always been a like massive traveler. I think like now I'm like around 78 maybe countries that I have been to so far. So like every year I do at least one big trip. And I also have a goal of going to at least one country I have never been in before.
Nice. I love that.
I've been in Chile and Argentina before this time. My country of this year was Nigeria, but it's still like a place that I always really wanted to go because it's really, really far. And I always thought like, oh, it's so far. It must be so different. So like that was the reason I really wanted to go. And then my partner also has a friend who was telling him a lot about Patagonia. So these things kind of aligned, and that's how we ended up there.
Did you have any particular goal for this trip?
I think like going, like just moving and looking around me and reflecting. And I think like one of the, like when you said about the W track and like how it goes from like one side to the other, like I think like one of the things that when I was researching, it wasn't very clear which particular way it's best to do.
Yeah.
But having done it like left to right, I think it was definitely like the best way to do it, in my opinion. So I would highly recommend it to like start easy and then like finish on the highs of their, of the view. And I don't know, like we were also very lucky because we were just us there. Well, sort of.
Yeah, we did have a great experience at the towers for sure. Tisca, how about you?
Yeah, my family is a big hiking family. I think we travel a ton to see each other and to make an effort to travel to new places, just like Natalia. I'd never been to Chile, and I was asking my friend, who's a big hiker as well, you know, where should my next destination be? I've done Mount Kenya a couple of times. We've done Machu Picchu, Table Mountain, the Dolomites, all of it. So he said, absolutely go to Patagonia, but go to the Chilean side. And so I kind of told my family I was going, and my parents were like, okay, we're coming with you. And I was like, okay, it's going to be a bit of a different trip, but it'll be fun either way. And we did the opposite. So we started on the east side and then went west, which, yes, it was quite difficult. And I think we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, we will. So, I mean, in terms of you've done a bunch of adventures, but you've also lived in a lot of different places. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I was born in Toronto, and then I spent high school in Nairobi in Kenya. My dad is from there, and so we kind of moved everything back. Then I did my first year of university in Paris. I finished my degree in LA, moved back to Toronto after I didn't get my visa to the States, and then got really bored and moved to London. And I've been here for a year and a half. And so I haven't lived in a place for more than 4 years in over 14 years. And I don't know if I'll ever do it again, but I'm already thinking about the next place I want to live.
That's amazing. I love that.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, totally. Did you have a particular, well, I know you did. What was your sort of particular goal, and did it sort of morph a little bit when you asked mom and dad, or when mom and dad said they were coming along?
Yeah, I really wanted to do something difficult. And I think as a family, we had fallen into the bucket of going for trips and doing day hikes, and then that kind of being the trip. But I wanted to do something, I wanted to trek and it be, you know, a multi-day adventure as opposed to just like a day hike. And having done Mount Kenya, I wanted it to be really hard. So I was like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself, really push myself pace-wise. I'm going to, carry my own stuff. And then my parents were like, we're coming. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm changing what that means. So the goal was to push myself physically initially. And then when my parents wanted to join, I still thought that the goal was going to be physical, because I was like, okay, they could probably hike at the same pace as I do, but that quickly unraveled.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, so I want to ask each of you guys about like one of your most vivid memories or just kind of a story that really stands out. Tisca, I want to stay with you because I think what you just shared kind of leads into your beginning. So tell us about your first day on the W truck.
Yes. So our first day, we'd been prepped before the hike that the first day was going to be 22 kilometers. And I think, I'm very capable of it. And I think my parents, they have never hiked 22 kilometers in one day. And so I think there was a little bit of, confidence around it. And I was like, okay, guys, I'm preparing you now. This is the reality of it, just so you know. And they're like, yeah, that's all good. We're going to be fine. And so the plan was start at the Refugio Central, go up all the way to the Torres del Paine, and then go to Cuernos, which is very long. And we soon came to discover that no one else was doing that. But essentially, we wake up at 8:30 a.m. We start hiking. We go to the towers, and then we stop at Chileno, and it's already 5 p.m. And that's the first break of the day. We have, a sandwich, a pizza, and the sun is, kind of disappearing from the sky. And I ask our guide, I'm like, how much longer do we have? I think we've done 14 kilometers by this point. And he's like, from here, it's another 12. And I was like, wait, hold on. It took us this long because my parents are slower. My dad's boot was really hurting his toe, so he was going extra slow. And in my head, I'm like, okay, it just took us that long to do 14 kilometers. We're going to arrive at the next refugio at like 4 a.m. And so I'm starting to panic a bit. And my parents are, my mom's had a hip replacement. They're almost 70 years old. And they've never trekked this before. So they asked the guide, like, can we get horses to the next place? Because we realized we couldn't go back to the previous camp because there was no beds available. So we had to get to the next campsite where our beds were booked. At first, he's like, yes, I think I can get horses. And then turns out there's no horses. And I look at my parents and I'm like, okay, guys, we have to do everything we just did again. And I need you to kind of toughen up and, let's give you some Advil and let's make it through. And so we start hiking again at 6 p.m. and 14 kilometers to go. And our guide keeps saying, oh yeah, it's just over the hill. It's just over the hill. And I'm walking. It's tense between my family and I. At one point, my dad is with the porter. Me and my mom are here and we're walking a bit faster because we're tired of walking so slowly. And we actually end up separating. And I stop and I'm like, oh no, Mom, Dad's not behind us. We've been walking in different ways for like 10 minutes now. So at the top of my lungs, I am screaming for my dad. And then I'm panicking because I'm like, oh no, the sun is like going down behind the mountains. We need to get back together. We don't know like the environment here. It's really like starting to pick up the wind. And so I'm screaming and then I hear like Tisca at the top of his lungs. And I'm like, okay. So we just start screaming each other's names back and forth. It felt like I was in a movie. We finally meet up, very tense, not a great environment to be in. And my mom is exasperated. I'm looking at her and I'm like, this is a tired woman. So I take her pack onto my bag. So I'm carrying 2 packs, probably about like 25 kilos at this point. And we're walking. And then it hits, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. is sunset. We're still walking. The sun is going down. I ended up taking my phone flashlight out because we didn't have our headlamps. Ugh. And I'm guiding my dad's way. We're on these like very rocky rocks. And I check my phone and it says like 26 kilometers. And so I asked the guide, I'm like, wait, we've done 26 already. I thought it was supposed to be 22. And he's like, oh yeah, like what's the difference between 20, 26, 22? And in my head, I'm like, the difference is hours. The difference is we could have been sat down at the campsite by now, but we're still walking. So I decided to lighten up the mood. And I realized my role there was to make sure that my parents felt okay and safe and not scared because it's pitch black and we're the only ones on this trail. And so that's when it shifted, that kind of fear of, what's going on here? I don't know, but I have to pretend that everything is okay so my parents feel safe and we can just get to the refugio in one piece without them hurting themselves. My mom falls a couple times. I was like, ugh, what is going on? And then we finally get to the refugio at 12:30 in the night. We did 51,000 steps that day, 28 kilometers. And what was really awesome is that the chefs had stayed up for us to make sure we got like a warm meal. And it was an incredible kind of gesture of welcome. And so we sat down and we kind of just started laughing at what the heck was going on. But these really kind people had stayed up, made sure we were okay, and like prepared sandwiches for us. So a lot of learning straight on day one.
That's amazing, because they were pretty strict about like the timing of serving the meals. But so this was fun because, and I was watching Natalia and Leilan's eyes when you started to talk about the route that you took, because we went the other way and we're just like, wait, what? You did what?
Yeah.
Because
I don't have a story to match this.
We all woke up at Chileno. I mean, that was like your like halfway spot at 6:00, and that's where we started to go up to the towers. And so, yes. And so what I love about this is because when you and I spoke the other day, just the two of us in prep for this, you were sharing that you really wanted something hard that was a challenge. And when your parents said they wanted to come, you thought this was going to be more of an exercise in patience and just being there to serve them. You got the challenge you were looking for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if I'd do it again that way, but it was really good. It was a bonding moment. It was proof that I can be a leader when put into tough situations. I put my feelings aside and my fears aside to make sure that they were comfortable and that they felt safe. And at the end of it, you know, when we were driving back to Santiago or to the airport, my parents, it was amazing. My parents were like, you are so good at motivating people. And it was kind of graduating from this relationship of child and parent to adults learning from each other. And it was really special.
That's amazing. I love that. You're learning something about yourself. Natalia, how about you? What's a vivid memory?
Yeah, I think like, I think probably the Towers Day. Like, as I said, like, I love multi-day trekking. The reason that it's like, it's like a long trip. Like if you go on a 1 week trip, you're still there, you're mentally at work, and you can't properly like switch off. When you go on a like 3 week trip, like you really forget and you get into the vibe. And it's the same with like multi-day trekking, where you're like, first day you're a bit like, I don't know, they dropped us on catamaran, it was raining, like windy. I was like, man, what's this? I'm on holidays, why am I here? Then it like the weather improved, and like every day you're getting into the rhythm and getting into the vibe and getting comfortable. You have the same people you're meeting at the camps, and like you're really like growing into this routine. And I think like when you're going from the left to the right, this story was kind of building up. Like you start easy, then every day it gets harder, more beautiful. And like you end up like in Chileno, which is a camp that is like really high up in this beautiful valley. And like you're just like, whoa, what is this? This is so beautiful. And then you know that the most beautiful part is still there. And I think like one of the things like we discussed about what time we're going to go there. And a lot of people go to the Torres for sunrise. But I'm not a morning person, so I've like no chance. I'm waking up at the sunrise at 5:30 a.m. So like I'm not waking up at like 1 a.m. to go on like Torres. So like this is too much. I can't enjoy anything that early in the morning. So we decided to like go early, but not too early. So we woke up at 5:30. Like we went all together. And it was like it was this. Like yellow sunrise sun, and like it's just like starting and like throughout the journey, and the route between Chileno and the Torres is like really beautiful. Like, and there's a lot of change. You have like you go through the forest, then you go through the rocks, and it's like kind of like building up, building up, building up, and like with the yellow light, and like there are no people, and then we get all the way almost to the top, and there is like a few hiking people and like coming down, and the last one says there is no one left there from the sunrise, like, and we were like, what, we're gonna get to this like point where it is like super popular with like lots of tourists, and we're just gonna be us, and we're like come out there and it's just us and the mountains, and you could see the top. Like it was like, wow, this is so amazing. We're like so happy. We're like taking all the pictures in different poses. All possible. I don't know, I have some like millions of pictures from there. But then there was like a funny moment because like all these pictures, like all this adrenaline, excitement, and then we turn around and there's a girl sitting next to the rock like this. And he's like, what? Like, what are you? Like Scott thought that she was doing her business. I was like, oh, sorry. And I was just like, I was like, why didn't you were gonna hear all the time? I didn't say anything. She was like, I heard you screaming, we're here the only ones, and I didn't want to spoil it. And it was like, I was like, okay, cool. And she was just like there, like trying to hide from the wind and looking at the place. But I think like it was definitely like the whole like build up situation, and then you get there and you just see it, and I think like there is something very special about being in a like I love mountains like so much, and being in like the mountain in a beautiful place, and just like you and the nature, and it's just overwhelming.
Yeah. And I think what's so beautiful about the towers is, I mean, you're climbing, you're all the way, like you're at a high point there. It's not high elevation, but relative to where you started, I mean, you're up high in this valley, and there's this beautiful glacial lake with these giant towers behind. And I think it's an iconic photo for sure. So yes, Leilan and I were super lucky to be there with you and Kuhn for that part. That was so much fun. Leilan, how about you? What was a story that you remember?
Mine was definitely from also the beginning of the trip when we got off the bus. So we took the bus in from Porto Natales, and as soon as we got through the park entrances, it started pouring rain. We were like, okay, awesome. I didn't do much research going into this trip. I was kind of like, he knows what he's doing. Like, my dad will take care of it. He made the plans. I'll just show up and walk. And so we drive into the park, pouring rain. The bus is shaking from the wind. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is great. And then we park and get off the bus. Everyone puts their rain jackets on, their rain pants. I left mine in my backpack, which was under the bus. So I got off the bus, soaking wet immediately. I was like, okay, off to a good start. This is going well. And we grabbed our backpacks, and my dad and I have talked about this a lot, but the first thing we noticed was that every single person that got off all of the row of buses had a pack cover for the rain. And we did not. So we had done some research, and we were like, okay, well, if we just throw like a big like trash compactor garbage bag in there and twist it up, and it'll stay dry. And it did. So I have to give us some credit. Everything did stay dry, and we packed way more dry clothes than we were ever going to need ever. But we definitely noticed that we got off, and like when you stay at the refugios, or you just go, you can't bring your backpacks inside. So you kind of just leave them out on the deck. And a lot of the times the decks are not covered. So we went in to get a coffee and go to the bathroom, and I just left my backpack in the pouring rain. I was like, okay, good luck. And it was like, we hadn't even been in the park for like 10 minutes. And I was like, we're here for a week. You know, everything is wet. I'm wet. It's cold. I'm going to fall over. It's so windy. It's like, Dad. I looked at him and I was like, you've got to be kidding. Like, this is a joke. But then, like, it rains for the whole catamaran trip. The wind was crazy. But after that, we didn't even really get any rain. So I think we definitely lucked out on the weather. The winds were crazy the whole time. But I think just getting off the bus and onto the catamaran like scared me. I was like, oh no, it's like, this is gonna be way worse than I thought it was gonna be. But it ended up being pretty mellow the rest of it. It was good. But yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of have to add to that because I was fortunate to do some pretty cool treks this past year and have done some pretty cool things from like Tour de Mont Blanc to Mount Everest Base Camp and Kilimanjaro. And I remember like researching the W Trek in this particular park, and there's no high altitude. You're basically starting at close to sea level. There's huge mountains, but the ascent, and you're doing a good amount of ascent and descent, but you're not going to any high. So there is no high altitude that's going to affect your breathing. The mileage isn't that, when you look at it, when you do it the way that Tisca did, it is. But I mean, if you do it the way everybody else does, the mileage doesn't look that bad. There's just, when you look at the kind of specs on paper, it really looks like a pretty moderate hike. And when we got there, like Leilan, I experienced the exact same thing she did, and I'd done the research, but we got there and I was like, the weather. Oh,
I had to say,
this is the variable.
I was like, what are we doing here? I want to go home.
Yes, the Patagonian weather. And like, especially so our first day going from Paine Grande to Refugio Gray, that's where the most exposed wind was, at least for us. I mean, any like comments about wind?
Yeah, that was our last day before the catamaran. This is when we walked outside and it was just, 60 kilometers an hour wind. I'm looking at my mom. She's so small. And I'm like, oh God, you're not going to have fun today. And, at one point I was walking in front of them for a while and it was pelting, like hail or something. It was like frozen rain pelting at your face sideways because the wind is coming into, and you're covered, like you're totally covered, but your face is just being burnt by the wind and by the freezing rain. And I took a selfie of my parents were down a little bit behind me, and I took a selfie and I was like, I'm gonna make a joke out of this, because if I don't, you guys are gonna be just miserable for the next 8 hours. And so in my head, I was like, okay, we're gonna have a break. I'm gonna give them, I actually felt like I was with my children. I gave them snacks. I gave them Gatorade every 2 hours. And yeah, the wind, it felt like it could pick you up at some points and kind of take you. And there are moments where you're just kind of staying where you are to make sure you don't knock over.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. And just like for me, there was rain, there was really high wind. We had sleet. We had that same sleet you had, Tisca. We had snow at one point going up to Britannico. The snow started coming down. And, but in that realization, and reality was what Leilan described for us, the weather was scary right at the beginning, but it improved. And as I reflect on it, I mean, that variable weather, it's part of the experience. I think if there's any place, at least that I've ever been, where gear matters, it's Patagonia. So a really good rain jacket and rain pants and the expensive gear actually matters in Patagonia. But for me, the weather just made part of the experience. That it was awesome. I mean, to be able to say that we got through that. I mean, the wind it wasn't awful. It was, I mean, you just accept it. And it was awesome. It was just part of the experience.
You really get all four seasons in your,
totally do.
in your the days when it was blue sky and the sun was out and the birds are chirping. And then the next day it's sleet in your face. You got every single season there. So it was part of the experience.
Painful. I remember I would put my thing over here because it was just hurting my face.
Yeah.
So then coming in, and then one of their Paine Grande is the windiest spot for camp. And I think Scott and me were discussing as well, lying on the tent, and it just literally shakes this the whole night. And I was like, yeah. I mean, I have not set up the tent. The guys set up the tent. They know what they're doing. Like it should be stable. It should be stable because like you literally lay down there and it was like, I can't believe that this tent is not going to be like carried up to get me and all my stuff.
Yeah, it's true. I remember thinking if I had pitched that tent myself and I was just out in the wild, like I would have been freaking out. But there was like 50 other tents that had been professionally set up. I'm like, okay, this is what they do this all the time. It's going to be okay. So speaking of bad weather, really just about a month before we all did this trek, there was a tragic accident on the O Trek, which is not what we did, but it's another part of the W. If you go further up into the more remote sections, you come over this section called the John Garner Pass, and there were some people that tragically died during a snowstorm. And I'm just curious for you guys, like this had just happened. In fact, the O Trek was closed when we got there because they were investigating and trying to figure out like the weather and doing some different things. And so I'm curious how like fear and just like the concept of safety sort of factored into your experience. And Natalia, I want to start with you.
Yeah, like I heard about the story, and obviously like it's like really horrible things that are gonna happen. And I think it like I did not research the track that much. Like I heard like, oh, W track is a great track. I'm like, I'm gonna go there. But I think like that definitely like ignited my curiosity of like looking more into it, because I always thought that like W track, I was like, it's super touristy, like nothing can ever happen there. Right. And then all of a sudden like something does happen. Yeah. So I was like looking into that, looking like what the situation is, and but like I think like in the end of the day, like I convinced myself that everything is going to be fine, and try not to think about it.
Yeah. Leilan, what about you?
I mean, I got like we did our trip through a company. They helped like book all of our refugios and everything. Right. So we found out, or I found out through an email, and I was sitting in my dorm room with all of my suite mates, and like I had just told them that I was going to Patagonia, and I opened up my phone to this email and I was like, oh God. Oh God. But I thought, like I read through it, and then I was like, okay, how close is that to where we're going to be? And the weather, so it's their summer there right now because they're in the southern hemisphere. So I was thinking, okay, it's been a month, like the snow, it's starting to become summer, like the snow's melting a bit, like the weather's warming up, the winds, I'm not really sure how they change, but it's like, okay, there's not going to be as much snow. We're not going as far north on the trek. And I was just like, honestly, I put most of my faith in my dad. And I was just like, what? If he hasn't said anything and he's okay, he like forwarded me the email and he was like, did you see this? And I was like, yeah. And I was just like, if he is okay, he's looked into it, we'll be fine. And if not, it's his fault. So yeah, that was my take on it.
It's my fault. Well, thankfully, our trip was completely flawless. Tisca, anything on your end from that, like from a fear standpoint?
Yeah, so I'm actually a travel agent. So this is the opposite situation. I was planning it with my parents, and you know, when they said they wanted to come, I already had kind of doubts around their capabilities to do it. I'm not doubting you, Mom and Dad, but basically, I was definitely afraid. Because, you know, you see something like that and it's right when you're about to go and it's so tragic. And after reading into it a little bit, I think I understood it more, especially because the O Trek and the W are different difficulties. And also, yeah, like it was said, more north. So after that, I was like, we're gonna be fine. It's really okay. It was horrible what happened. And I think a lot of it had to do with, you know, just not enough regulations in place and support. But I think, you know, that is a wake up call for the people there.
Yeah.
And it went well for us. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
And I think there were some procedural things and, some safety precautions that maybe, but I think they're working through it. And I think, like, for me, honestly, part of it was like playing the odds, like, okay, it just happened a month ago. What are the chances that there's going to be another accident like that, like a month later? Probably not. But yeah, it definitely was a wake up call, and, a series of events that led to something that were kind of rare, that they all sort of happened at the same time, but tragic nonetheless. And, you'd hate to be part of that. But let's move to the fun part of this. And it's, the people that you meet along the way. And I mean, so cool. Like, we are having this reunion. It's just so much fun. And the way that we got to meet both of you, Tisca, we got to meet you and your family at Refugio Gray. And I don't even remember how, like, we were just kind of in the bar area and we just started chatting up a conversation. And Natalia, we ended up playing cards one night, and I think we were chatting in the line for the bathroom or something. And then we ended up playing cards.
For dinner, in the line for dinner.
Yeah. And we just hit it off. We got to hike together. I mean, just so much fun. I'd love to hear your thoughts about, like, on this particular trek, or really any trek, like the people that you meet along the way. And Leilan, I want to start with you.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a bunch of multi-day treks before, but most of them were through my school or through a North Carolina program. So much of it was not people I had met before, but people my age, people that all grew up where I grew up. Like, we had things in common. So it was definitely eye-opening to go down that far south and meet people from literally all across the globe. And wait, I'll pull it up. My dad and I made a list of every time we'd meet someone, we'd write down where they were from. And I think the top contenders were London and Germany. We had Sweden, Ireland, Holland, Switzerland, Canada, France, Greece, like literally so many countries. I think there's like 20 countries on the list that we made. But it was incredible to meet so many different people from such different backgrounds. And especially, like, now that I'm in college, like, it's cool to be able to bring that experience back and kind of see it almost reflected in, like, the community that I live in now. Because, like, a lot of people from my high school came to this college. So in some ways I, like, stick to what I know, but in other ways it's really important to me to kind of break apart from that and see what else is out there. So I feel like that was a really cool way to do that in Patagonia.
And I'm curious, Leilan, because, you're born and raised in North Carolina, you're going to school in North Carolina. Like, how did this trip, like, impact your sort of worldview?
It was crazy. Like, I've stayed here pretty much, or I have stayed here my whole life. So I've kind of stayed in the same bubble almost. And I've met people from very different backgrounds, especially now that I'm in college, like people from all over the country, and like multiple states, even just multiple countries living on my hall. But it was such a crazy experience to go somewhere where being from the US was almost a minority. Like, I think we only met like maybe 2 or 3 people from the United States. So it was so cool to be able to meet people from totally different places and just see how vastly different their lives are from what we have in North Carolina.
Yeah. Love it. Tisca, how about you? The people that you met along the way?
Yeah, I think so my family and my parents are so good at doing this, and they're so good at engaging with strangers and making them, big, important parts of their lives. I think I was talking to you about how, all of our godparents were met just so randomly, strangers in the street, and now they're, the closest people to us. And I have so many examples of that. But I think what really struck me is that in your day-to-day life, it's easy to go on your phone and not engage with the outside world, or just keep doing what you're doing, go to the gym, go to work, go home, like, your routine. And I think when you remove all that, you remove the normalcy of your day-to-day in a place like Patagonia, you have, 3 options of activities. It's talk to people, read a book, or, play cards. And I think when you're at the bottom of the world, depending on how you're looking at it, and you're in this very secluded place where everyone else has decided they're going to go on this adventure and they're taking time out of their daily lives to go do something that everyone knows is going to be a little bit challenging at some point, you kind of are already interconnected and you have this common ground that makes it really easy to find friends and to find people who have that sense of adventure. So it was a joy to go to each camp and see how open people were to just chatting and learning about one another. And I think the best part is that all these different stories that came about that were fantastic came because there was a challenge along the way. And I was telling my dad, you don't get a fun story unless something bad happened. Yeah. So I think the sharing of those stories, even just on the trek, but then getting into people's lives and like where they're from and all that fun stuff was incredible. And that's why you do it half the time, right? It's that you're going to meet some pretty inspiring or fun people as much as you're going to see beautiful views and vistas.
Yeah. Well, you and your family were like the real deal. I remember like we spent so much time chatting and getting to know you guys at Refugio Gray, but then Leilan and I kind of got to the point where we're like, okay, it's late. We're tired. We're going to bed. And then for some reason we ended up back there. I forget, like maybe I left something or forgot. And I think maybe Leilan thought she lost her phone or something. I can't remember, but we went back and you guys were still there, just like chatting it up with a whole another group of people. I was like, man, I just remember that. Natalia, what about you? The people that you met along the way, you and Kuhn?
Yeah, I think it's like the environment definitely like helps that. I remember first day we arrived in Gray and there was like a 30 minutes free Wi-Fi you could get, and we were like, oh, yes, let's use this. And we're like, and then the next day, like we arrived in Paine Grande, and then there was no Wi-Fi or something, and then like the third time we arrived in the camp, I was like, I'm loving it. Like, it's so good. Like, I don't want any Wi-Fi. And then even when we were getting to the Puerto Natales, I remember, and like Kuno was like connecting to Wi-Fi on the bus, and I was like, I really don't want it. Like, I really want to connect back to Wi-Fi. Can I stay in my little world without Wi-Fi and without like connection to the outside world? Like, it feels great. And I think like they do it really well in the camps as well, because you have this like big dining hall and like you have nowhere to go. You can sit in your tent, which is not great and a bit cold, or you can be in the big dining hall, and then like all the people are in one place, and it's like they're not really distributed across the camp. So like they're all here. And that really facilitates this conversation. Like you have nothing to do. All the people are here, and like as far as you go along the way, even though you can like have different combinations of the camps of where you stay, you still meet the same people over and over again, because you're moving in the same direction to the same way. And that also like gives you like really warm fuzzy feeling, like especially sometimes you arrive and you're like, oh, where are those guys? Oh, these guys are not here. Are they staying in a different camps? You feel like a little bit like this community, making sure that everyone arrived, no one disappeared, and it's like it's very, very nice. It's like I was saying that it like really reminded me of like youth camp years.
Yes, totally.
Where you're like all sleeping in one place and there's like nature around you, and I really enjoyed that. And then definitely like their different perspective, like you live in a city, you have friends from school, from university, you make new friends from work, friends of your friends. It's still it's the same circle, it's the same like community, like even though like in Amsterdam there are like all these people from different countries, it's still like the surrounding is quite similar. And then you go somewhere like Patagonia, and then you meet like people like very different and a very like completely different path of life. Like we met this impressive like girl from California who was studying birds in Chile, and then she was telling us all about birds. Like I learned so much about birds while I was in Patagonia, and like it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, just so much fun, and like, yeah, to your point, like Leilan and I traveled just the two of us, but yet I feel like this was like a group travel experience because we met so many people along the way, and it was just like, you'd come around a bend and see somebody that you spent, a couple hours hiking with earlier. It's like, hey, what's going on? I mean, it's just everybody was friends out there, and it's just like the nature of how that trek aligns. It's just so cool that you're kind of with the same people the entire time. Natalia, I want to start with you. So the last thing I really want to talk about is just this idea of taking on hard challenges and pushing limits. And I want to start with you because you and I had a really good conversation about this. Beyond just the W Trek, you have a really unique philosophy about like sort of what motivates you in terms of like pushing limits. And so I wonder if you could sort of talk about like your sort of philosophy on that.
Yeah. I think like for me, it's a lot about like, I was also like walking today during the day and like reflecting on it, on like what actually like drives me like to go and experience all these things. And I was like, what do I actually do with this? Right. Because like I always had this urge, like from like since I was a kid, of like going far and see the countries and like meet new people and hear their stories. And I always loved it. And I think like for me, there is a lot of this like multidimensionality of the world, right? And then it is like, it's about distance, right? Like you go to different countries and you go and travel far. It's about people, about cultures. So like the more of the different you see, the more interesting and like full your life becomes. So like I was thinking about like, I also lived in a lot of different countries, and like looking back, I was like, well, imagine I never left Moscow and like I lived there all my life. Oh my God, like my understanding of this world would be so narrow in comparison to what it is now. So I think like they're going on adventures and like meeting new people on the tracks. It really helps you to like understand and live the life, and it's like much more full potential of it. And it makes it like just fully and more interesting. And then I think like part of it is like I like to process a lot of this information that I see and observe and then share it with other people, and like inspire them to go and do and explore and experience, because that's what makes life exciting.
Yeah, I love it. And one thing I just want to highlight that you and I spoke about before, Natalia, is that you told me before that when you're thinking about these things, you have this sort of natural inclination to always want to go as far as you possibly can and start at the outer limit. Like, I don't know, for listeners, just kind of share a little bit about that because I loved that.
Yeah, it's like I was telling Scott like how like my grandma used to have a big map on the wall when I was a child, and like I was always a dreamer, so I would like go and lie on the sofa and look at that map, and like I saw like I was like, okay, where the furthest of the furthest from Russia is, and like I thought that it was Patagonia actually. It's like I was like that looks really far. I really want to go there. And then it's very simple. Like when I go skiing, for example, I always like first day, I'm like, let's go to the end of the map. And my friends were like, we just arrived. Let's just like try out the tracks next to where we are. I was like, no, but what if we don't have another chance? Like, let's go to the furthest possible, and then we can relax and do like the little things. And yeah, I think that also comes from this like idea of like I want to see everything, and like and a little bit of a fear that I won't have time. So I want to see the furthest up, to start with their like the best.
Let's start with the furthest first. I love that. That's so awesome. Leilan, in terms of like pushing limits, I don't know, what are your thoughts, and like, did this trip push your limits?
Definitely. Definitely. I've been a swimmer all my life, so I've always considered myself like very physically capable, and I'd like go. We have a mountain close to our house called Crowder's Mountain, and I feel like I've always been able to go and kind of summit it, come back down, and be like pretty okay the rest of the day. And you're like, okay, like I can do this. And we did a couple practice runs before going to Patagonia, and I was like, okay, this is good. Like I can do it. And then I got to college and got caught up in school and stopped swimming as much. And I was like, okay, I'll be fine. Like, this is fine. I'll be fine. I'll be good. And we get there. The first couple of days, I'm good. And the day that really tested my limits, and it shouldn't have, because it was probably one of the easier days, but we going from Refugio like Francis up to Chileno, it was just it was relatively flat for most of it. It was just like kind of you walked along a valley, but the sun was beating down and I was tired from going to Britannico the day before, and just a bunch of things kind of collided at once. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I like started crying on the trail. I was like, like, I can't, like, this is, and I felt so stupid. I was like walking on a flat trail, like sobbing. I was like, I can't do it. Like, I can't do it. And I was thinking about how we had to do all this tomorrow. And I was like, oh God. But like, at the end of the day, that's what you go for. Like, I packed up and went to Patagonia knowing that I would be standing somewhere on the trail, like sobbing at some point because I was tired and overwhelmed and whatever. But I feel like that's why you do it. And it helps you just figure out so much about where you stand and like how far you can push before you start crying, and then see if you can go a little further. And usually you can. And I did. So I was proud of that, even though it was the flat day that made me cry.
The flat day made me cry. I love it.
Yeah.
I had this moment in Argentinian part as well, where like we were going up, 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 and then every time you turn around and there is more up.
Yeah.
And at some point I just sat down and I said, "Give me banana." And like sat down, and he was like, "We're almost there." I was like, "Give me banana." And I just sat there eating banana in the middle of the trail, and everyone's passing by.
So fun. So, Tisca, when you and I talked a couple of days ago, I think one of your biggest, I guess, takeaways, but also just sort of like mindset beliefs was this whole idea of pushing limits. And that's why I wanted to finish this one with you, because you have strong feelings about this. Can you just talk a little bit about your thoughts on this particular trip, but pushing limits in general?
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said before, I wanted to push myself physically, and I love these treks because it's a controlled difficulty. Like, you can be as prepared as you can, but you know going into it that there's going to be things that come up that make it hard for you. And that's exactly what I was looking for at that point in time. And I've been thinking about this a lot because recently I've adopted this mindset of life is hard, but you get to choose your hard. And I was more so relating that to my work. You know, the 9 to 5 is hard for different reasons, and owning your own business is hard. And I think applying that and knowing that if you can accept that life is going to be hard anyway, it actually makes it a little bit easier to navigate through the difficult parts, because those things you get to choose. And so the mountains is a difficulty I choose because I know I'll learn something, but it's something that I get, like, it's in my power, in my wheelhouse. And with my parents, I actually cried as well, but for different reasons than Leilan. I think, you know, after the long day and the ending up at the refugee at 12:30 in the pitch black, I literally sat down on the bench and I burst into tears. And all that was going through my mind was I put my parents in danger, and it could have been a lot worse than it was. And all I was thinking about was like my responsibility of taking care of the people around me. And you know, I think I'm always like traveling to go see friends, traveling to go see family. Like, that is the core of who I am, is a traveler and a nomad, but for the people. And when I sat down and burst into tears, I was like, that is a part I couldn't control. I couldn't control if something bad happened in the moment. I just had to get through it, put on a brave face for my parents. And then when finally I could release my emotions, it kind of just happened. And of course they were like, "Oh my God, it's not your fault." But in my head, I was like, okay, I have this kind of sense of control, and this is my that was my limit. And yeah, it was different than what I expected it to be. And I'm so glad that I couldn't have predicted that was the lesson I was going to learn. Yeah.
You guys just like made my whole, like, you just made my trip even better, even though, and I didn't even know. So whenever I plan like a trip, like especially with people, like group experience, like there's a few things that I always think about that make it successful. So first and foremost is that everybody gets up and down safely. The second is that they are able to achieve their goal. The third is that we laugh. And the fourth is that we cry and that there's tears. And you guys all shared that there was tears. Everybody cried. I love it. It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. So this was a hugely successful trip. How fun that this was to be able to hang out with you guys and sort of recap it. I feel like I'm back there, kind of want to go back. I could talk to you for another hour, but I think we need to wrap up. I'm just going to do a quick rapid fire here. Like this whole podcast, the point is to help people listen to the voice inside that calls us to adventure and to follow that voice and go do the thing that you want to do. So quick kind of round robin from each of you guys. What advice do you have for people that have that dream inside their belly, but haven't been able to pull the trigger on doing it? Leilan, let's start with you.
I mean, my advice is honestly to just do it. You gotta bite the bullet. You gotta get out there, and there's so many what ifs, or should I do this instead? Or like, if like I tend to get a lot of FOMO. I'm a big fear of missing out, especially like with all my friends. Like, okay, well, if I go do this, what am I going to miss at home? But I think the way more important thing is if you don't do this thing, if you don't follow this dream, then that's what you're missing out on. And if I didn't go to Patagonia, then I would never have met y'all. Like I never would have seen all the things that I have seen, and I never would have cried on the flat trail. So I feel like you gotta just go out and do it, and you will never regret going out and just doing something.
Love it. Tisca?
You can't grow when you're comfortable. So pick things that you know are going to challenge you and be hard and that might be a little bit unknown, but and know that going into it, you're going to grow from it.
Love it. Natalia?
I think it's a lot about confidence. Like I think a lot of people think like, oh my God, I have never done this before. Like how am I gonna do this? So like I have never walked 20 kilometers. Like that's gonna be like, how am I gonna achieve this? But in reality, most of the time you're much stronger than you think you are. And people are very adaptable to the environment they're in. If it's like rain and sleet and in your face for like 5 days, it's going to be okay. In the end of the day, you're going to get used to it and you won't notice it anymore. So just like believe in yourself and just go do it.
Love it. Thank you. Guys, the W Trek in Patagonia was such an epic adventure. And here's 4 friends and our families and our partners and, you know, all these people that were involved. Like at some point, this story that we've created in this time that we were together, Hollywood's going to pick up on it and they're going to want to make a movie about this experience. Mm-hmm. And when they do, I want to know who's going to be the Hollywood actor or actress that's going to play you in this movie. Leilan, let's go with you first.
I'm going to go with Anne Hathaway. She's always been one of my favorites.
You're consistent. So you were on this podcast before and that's who you said last time. So that's awesome. So Anne Hathaway. All right. Tisca, who's going to play you?
It has to be Jessica Alba.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I've been compared to her, and I'm like, you know what? That's gonna be who plays me.
Love it. All right, Natalia, who's gonna play you?
Halle Berry.
Nice. I love it. That's amazing. All right, so since I was part of this one, I get to be included here. It used to be Ty Burrell from Modern Family, but I've changed over to Jason Sudeikis because I got to be Ted Lasso for Halloween one year and it just worked. And so there's going to be a movie with Anne Hathaway, Jessica Alba, Halle Berry, and Jason Sudeikis. It's going to be an Oscar winner. And like, I need a name. Who's got the name ready?
I think I have the name.
Yeah.
What's the movie called?
Chasing the Unpredictable.
In Patagonia. Ooh, yeah, I love that. Chasing the Unpredictable. It's an Oscar winner. I mean, how can it not be? You guys, this was so much fun. I know I said this before, but 6 weeks ago, we didn't even know each other. We were strangers. Now here we are. I call us friends, and I believe that we're all going to see each other again on another adventure. And I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with me today. For those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope this W-Trek story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that called you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Leilan, Tisca, Natalia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.